Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
Well, either you're all worn out from the weekend sit, or you're not up yet, or not awake yet. There's not much strength in your singing at all. At all. Slurping along there. Okay, we come finally to the last of the Upanishad. Aren't you glad? The last chapters, the last verses of it, which read, "The face of truth is covered with a brilliant golden lid. That do thou remove, O fosterer, for the law of truth, for sight. O fosterer, O soul seer, O ordainer, O illumining sun, O power of the Father of creatures, marshal thy rays, draw together thy light, the luster which is thy most blessed form of all, that in thee I behold, the Purusha, there and there, he am I. The breath of things is an immortal life, but of this body ashes are the end. O will remember that which was done. O will remember that which was done. Remember. O Agni, knowing all things that are manifested, lead us by the good path to the felicity. Remove from us the devious attraction of sin. To thee, completest speech of submission, we would dispose." And I'm going to pick up about where I left off last Sunday, running out of time as I did, and I didn't want to keep you sitting there any longer, So, and we start out again then with this Surya, which is, remember we're talking in terms of India with her gods, and this pantheon, where all the energies and the forces have been named, and they call them gods. So Surya is the supreme truth. This is the supreme truth is labeled Surya. And he is known as the revealer. And he is termed sight. And so they call him the fosterer or the increaser, because it is he that opens our limited beings into this infinite and luminous consciousness, truth. It is he that is the soul seer, the one seer. He sees oneness, and he is the knower of the self. So he is the ordainer. And it is Surya that tries to lead us on a direct path, which is called the law of truth, to the truth, the so-called correct principle of our nature. However, his rays, that is his influence, the radiation of this energy, becomes distorted, and it breaks up and is disordered in our reflecting and dividing mind. Our minds divide, our minds reflect, And so it takes this energy of truth and breaks it up. And it is this breaking up in our minds, this distortion, that forms the golden lid which covers the truth. See, we have the truth, only we have divided it and separated it, and it's in a million little pieces in our minds. It is fragmented, and the thing is to pull it together. So the prayer to Surya is to put us in a correct order and to draw the fragments together into the unity of truth. So Surya is, in a way, the intuition or the knowing aspect, because it knows the self, and it knows the truth, and it is the truth. And so in this intuition of this aspect of the mind, we come across and they do compare it to the Gnostic idea, the gnosis as a power, and it works in its own law, that law of truth. And this gnosis, whose nature is sight, it is seeing, it is not conception, it doesn't work with concepts, it is not conceiving. You know, the sentence is, for the law of truth, for sight, to see the self, the self-vision, which is in all vision, the self. This is Surya in India. And of course, the Gnostic idea is Greek. It knows. The gnosis knows. It sees what is true. Now, the face of truth is covered with a brilliant golden lid. We could call this lid our objective, self-conscious viewpoint. It's our view. And it is broken up by our objective, self-conscious view. And then so it is covered by our self-conscious view. We are, as man, mankind, humankind, we are mentally oriented. We stand on 2 feet, and our head is up in the air, and we stand somewhat upright, that is vertical. We are endowed with a difficult-to-obtain human body, as the Tibetans put it. As human beings, as man, we have mind. The word man comes from the Sanskrit manu, which is mind or man. Being a human being, in that state, we have mind. The mind in its activity is our thoughts. And our thoughts lead us. And it is surprising. I think someday, if you have not already seen it, you will be very surprised how your thoughts do lead you. We do their bidding. We're not even aware that we're thinking. And yet what we are doing is what is going on in the head. We're acting it out. And then we wonder why we get into trouble. Yeah? Yeah. So, begin to watch what goes on in here. What you're thinking. Because what you're thinking, you are doing. Yeah. Watch your thinking, lest you befool yourself. Or as the old Zen master put it, do not deceive yourself. Yeah. Now, the mind in its substance, or mind substance, is also the mind of God. Manu, mind. Your mind. Not the thoughts. That belongs to the world of appearance and phenomena and so on. But the mind itself. And you know, the Christian scientists have a good way of putting it. They say that there is mortal mind, the way we ordinarily think, and this is the imperfect mind. And then there is the immortal mind, which is perfect. And they say, therefore, be ye perfect. They don't say go through a whole lot of rigmarole and purifying processes. No, just be in that mind. Be perfect. That mind is already perfect. Yeah. Through our thoughts, our ideas, our concepts, we have a knowledge. We have a knowledge of appearances. This, how it appears to me. This, how it appears to me. What it is in its reality is covered. By the way I see. That is an appearance in my world. If you're looking at it, it is also an appearance in your world. No. But in this world of appearances, in my world, we arrange, and then we rearrange, and then we rearrange. For God knows how many times we keep rearranging our thoughts about the appearances, not even acknowledging that they are appearances. And with these arrangements and rearranging of these appearances, we try very hard to infer the truth. Some people befool themselves. They begin to think of the inferences as reality. Very easy to do. The inferences. I have deduced this and this from these appearances, and now I know. I have attained. I am enlightened. I haven't. They don't say I've inferred. Now, Surya, the true knowledge, true knowing, he is a true knower, is the truth of existence as such, in its suchness, or the truth as it is, in what it is. There is a truth, and we call them many, in this world of appearance, about appearances. I mean, we do have natural laws, and we know that, huh? The phenomenon. I mean, there's such a thing as gravity. This has to do with the moon and the tides and our not flying off into space somewhere as we're walking on the surface of this planet. There is a truth about appearances, and there is a truth of non-appearance. And they call that the law of truth, of non-appearance, of the noumenal world. Now, the gods, the forces, the energies, in which we went into some lessons back here, huh? The gods Surya and Agni, they work in us. They're fellow conspirators in a way. And through them, we finally come to see the truth. The truth by gnosis. Truth by sight. And this, in turn, sets aside, as it were, our concepts and our percepts and our inferences of the appearances and replaces it with the knowing of the self-vision, of the self-seeing, of the self-knowing. Just that self. Now, to tread the path, it's called sometimes. And in our seeking, in our questing, in our looking for the truth, it is very important that we learn to see things as they are in our world, my world. We must learn to see ourselves as we are. And this is extremely difficult, to see yourself as you are. And in this, we come to rely on this gnosis, on the noetic quality of the mind, to see ourselves as we are. For without that intuitive action in us, we're only one opinion looking at a bunch of opinions, or we're looking with a concept at another concept. We may call it I, but it is a concept. Speaking of other concepts, looking at other concepts, opinions looking at other opinions. So where are you in that? In all those opinions and inferences and concepts and ideas and notions and what have yous, where are you? And this journey home, for we are all the prodigal son, We all begin this journey on this path home with a fundamental falsehood. We live, and some people live all their lives, with this fundamental falsehood, which is very simple. We believe that we have a separate existence from all others, and in this separateness, we try to know relations between separate things in their separate states. We want to know. We act out of a knowledge of appearances that we have accumulated on the basis of being separate one from the other. Everything is based on our separateness. The ego is separate. Our thoughts are separate. My thoughts are different than your thoughts, aren't they? Sure. No, they're not. Thoughts are thoughts, We believe in this knowledge of separateness that we have accumulated. And then we run around and look at the schools and the seminars and things that are going on now about relations and relationships. Oh, yes. Oh, you and I have a nice relationship. Which you can have, either a nice relationship or a not so nice relationship. But you can have it only as long as you think of yourself as being separate. Now, that's the world of appearance. In all of us, in everybody, I don't care who they are, everybody, in our everyday, ordinary actions, in the way we function every day, in our world of separateness, seeming, there is a seed of truth. We all have this seed of truth. And this seed must be allowed to sprout. That is, it dies to itself. And then we must allow it to grow. it grows to be a tree. And this tree is called the tree of life, which also grows in the garden. And we begin then to eat the fruit of the tree of life instead of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Eating the fruit of the tree of life, we shall be free. We are liberated from the appearances of good and evil, the opposites. There is something in us, there is an element in us which frees us. It gives us freedom. It leads us to freedom. We have this element already. It is not something you have to go out and look for. It is not something that you have to acquire. You have it now. The element that leads to freedom. It leads us out. And so in the story of, in the myth or the legend of Jesus, he is called Judas. It is the element which frees us. It allows us out. Now, within every act, with every perception, there is also this gnosis, this intuition, this Surya. We keep ourselves very, very busy falsifying ourselves and our world in our thinking. And yet all the while this intuition, which is in every thought, it preserves itself. And it works at all times to lead us to the truth. Behind all of our labors, and we do labor to divide, to differentiate, there is this insistent unifying tendency, the knowing trying to become one. We say we yearn to know. Oh, we want desperately to know. There is a hunger in us to know. And we yearn to know by the very knowing itself. This gnosis, Surya. And through the action of Surya, of the truth itself, through this noetic element of the mind, we arrive finally at a supreme, super transient state where the truth of things is a total vision. It is self-luminous. And this self-luminous, this supreme light, it is called, the supreme will, the supreme delight, the ananda of it, the Lord, it is called, the Purusha, the self-being. In this perfect seeing, in that instant, you see, it is, in the Upanishads they say, Soham, he am I. In Buddhism there is the story of the little lion cub, that mother died giving it birth. She was hungry and she was leaping at this group of sheep, and she died. And the sheep found this little cub. So they raised it. They taught it to eat grass, and they taught it sheep language, ba. And it grew. And And then one day, a huge lion came by. And he saw this little lion eating grass. Ah, you know. And he picked it up by the scruff of the neck and took it to the pond and said, "Look at yourself. Do you look like a sheep?" You know. So he took it away and he fed it meat. And all of a sudden, something happened to this little lion. You know. And this little lion roared, you know, a lion cry. He was a lion, so he could cry like a lion. So, you know, it's Buddhism. Yeah. But in the Upanishads in India, you know, it's Soham. Here am I. Again, it's this lion's roar. The Purusha, there. He am I. The true identity, Soham. It is all, and is that which transcends all. Now, through Surya, the sole seer, the one and only seer, illumining the mind and leading the consciousness from mortality to immortality. The sun as the doer, as the gate. The limited consciousness steps through this gate into this full, total consciousness. And the whole band spectrum, you know, that has been spread out. Remember, I went through that. Do you remember that? You remember that? Okay. You know, energies, you know, band spectrum. You let it go both ends, and you know, right back to little bitty mustard seed, as it were. Huh? The rubber band snaps back into place. The supreme, all-embracing soul. So Surya represents the divine light, represents the truth, and Agni then, which is the fire god, so to speak. To these ancient teachers, Agni represented the divine force or the power or the will in consciousness. Not in your thoughts, the will in consciousness. So then we have finally a knowing and will as a unity. Unity is the true foundation. There is a unity. There is one. That's the true foundation. This one has many aspects. Now, as individuals in our separateness in this world of appearances, we accept within ourselves a division that there is out there and there is in here. We have opposites out there in here. We have high and low opposites. We have hot and cold, near and far. We accept this division, and it becomes our law. And it becomes the way that we are governed. It becomes the way we think, this division. And so we isolate ourselves in our egotistic limitations. The truth is very obscure. We can't ever seem to find it, to pick it up. But we know it's there. We can feel it, but how do I pick it up, So it's obscure, and we work in ignorance. We are ignorant of it. In all of our goals, our aims, what we want, and the methods that we contrive to get what we want, our manipulations for our success. We follow all of this in a knowledge that is the information that is accumulated about appearances and these opposites, which we make personal. We have personal knowledge, which is governed by desire, by our habits of thought, by our obscure subconscious impulses, and then into some lives, a broken or a partial or a shifting light. See, the light in this instance being a transcendent perception. Our knowledge is narrow in its objectivity. Objects, Thoughts are even objects. We are very narrow in our subjectivity of this I and here. Neither objectivity or subjectivity in this sense is a unity. And it really doesn't work with the will of the universe. So it is said that our actions are crooked. It is not one. Our actions are not one with this will of the universe. Our actions are crooked. It has many branchings. It hesitates and it fluctuates. And what direction is best? Into what area should I go? Where should I turn? What direction should I go in? And then it comes the impulse to go this way. And we start out on that, and after a few footsteps, well, now let's think this thing over, and let's go that way. And then again comes the question, well, really, in what direction should I go? And our concepts beat around in our heads, and they dash around in all these falsehoods trying to find the truth. We pick up scraps, we pick up fragments, out of which we try to piece a whole. We try to sew them all together and have a whole patchwork, And we stumble along amongst our errors and the sins, as they call it, to find the true and the right. Now, this word sin, many of us are conditioned to shudder at this word. Yeah. The Upanishad has the concept. The sin is that which excites and hurries the faculties into a deviation from the good path. From the straight path to the crooked path. It's that which excites us. So this can be anything, It can be any thought, actually. Now, some of you realize this, It can be the most beautiful of thoughts. Can excite you and lead you into a crooked path. The most dazzling thought can be a deviation from the good path. Meister Eckhart, he said, the sun at noon is in all its glory. You can pick up a tiny pebble and hold it before your eye, and you cannot any longer see the sun. And so in your minds, any thought, no matter how beautiful you may think it is, how dazzling it may appear to you, it hides the truth. A thought. The mind is obscured because of thinking. The mind. And there is a straight path, and it leads to what they call infinite levels. Vistas. Which we should normally take toward our fulfillment. But then this that excites us, what they call sin, with that we stumble along. We are limited. We have this uneven, crooked, winding path. You go round the mountain and round the mountain and round the mountain instead of straight up. Jesus in the Gospel of St. Thomas spoke that he was coming to make straight the way. He said, the crooked shall be made straight. That's what he intended, straight the way. Now, in our limited human consciousness, it is the eye. We move our eyes constantly, and we blink often, frequently. We move because the eye consciousness knows that the eye doesn't see everything. There's a blind spot in the eye. So it moves. That way it can take in the whole picture. If it didn't move, it wouldn't see all of it. And so with the mind, we have blind spots. We are a limited human consciousness. And so we have neither this single vision, the single eye. If thine eye be single, thine whole house shall be filled with light. See? Nor do we have a whole vision. We don't have a totality of the will, and we don't have the oneness of this transcendent. Very difficult, then, to walk the straight path towards the truth. We are led around by desire, and don't kid yourself that you're not. We are exposed to forces around us, which I talked about way back when, second or third lesson. That if there, with some of these forces, if you were in harmony with them, this you called pleasure. And if you were not in harmony with them, you called it pain. And the rest you ignored. You were indifferent to. See? And the ego, you see, being that which holds us in this limitation, see, doesn't really want much harmony with these forces. So, because it opens it up and delimits it in a way. So, how much pleasure do you have in your life? Look back. And so we suffer, and we have a life of falsehood in our ignorance. And this we do not see in ourselves. That we lie to ourselves, we don't see. We live in a kind of a twilight. And our senses perceive and the mind interprets. And then there is this appearance in the consciousness. And we extend it in space-time, and we objectify it in the world. And then again you're cognizing this object which you have projected, and you consider everything out there as separate from yourself. In this process, naturally, our perception is not total. And what we need, is whole seeing. Not just with the mind, this divided mind, but to see from within, to see from this element of gnosis, not from a point of one phenomena looking at another phenomenon, but from the source of all seeing. In this subject-object state, we live as if it were in a twilight. And in all of our appearances and falsehoods and divisions, there is a light trying to bring about a full dawn of truth. Behind all of our mistakes, behind all our errors, behind all our stumblings, within us and transcending, there is will. There is a kind of a secret will in us. But it tends toward love and harmony. This is where will brings us. And it is this will which is always trying to bring together our crooked branchings into this single path. The emergence in us of this will, to have it blossom out, the will and the light. See, this is the condition of immortality. Now, in this particular Upanishad, this will is called Agni. In most of the Vedas, Agni is called fire, except for the Rig Veda. There also it is called will. Will, the divine will, the force of consciousness that works in us. Agni is working, and Surya is working, and what are you doing? Well, I sat 10 minutes. Big deal. Agni is the leader of the journey. It's like he's the horse that carries us over the road. And very difficult to find in this mishmash that we carry around in our consciousness. Difficult to find in all of this that comes and it goes, because we falsify so much through our desires, what we want. So always is the admonition, observe. And don't be like the woman who said she had observed for 9 months and she finally saw flowers she'd never seen before. Observe your thoughts. Observe your desires. Observe where you're going. Be alert. Watch. Through this observation, one begins to see this ego, as it were. Through the practice of observation and meditation, one can really get a handle on oneself, finally. You can see what you want. And then you can ask, do I really want that? And always ask, this desire, this thing that I want, what is it going to bring in its wake? We so blithely move into situations which we think we want, which we think will make us comfortable, which we think will give us security, which we think will make us happy. But it's like a boat on the ocean. There is a wake. there is something that comes after. The tail of the dragon, or the dragon tail, it's coming. Huh? See? Just don't jump into something because it's handy and it's, it's going to make me comfortable. I'm going to feel better now. What cometh hereafter? To be able to look at your desires objectively and to look at oneself subjectively. We are objectively self-conscious. So don't say, oh, poor me. Use your state. Use it. Now, the myths, of these gods of India and the search that we're on can be put into any tradition, be it Hindu, the Indian thing, or Christian, or Jewish, or Buddhism. It doesn't even have to be put into a religion. But we do. We have it as a backdrop, a background. Now, in this kind of a myth that they have in India, with this pantheon of gods, they had as many gods as the Greeks had. Every force has a name. They're all enumerated. Agni in action prepares Indra. See? Indra, the luminous mind. Indra, the shining mind that reflects everything in her net. See? Indra, the finder of the truth. Then Indra slays Vritra, who is the coverer, who is the veil. It is put away, it is destroyed. Like in Omar Khayyam, there was a veil through which I might not see. And then I couldn't help it, I had to go on a little bit. Then of the thee and me who works behind the veil, I lifted up my hands to find a lamp amid the darkness. And I heard, as from without, the me within thee blind. Before the phantoms of false morning died, methought a voice within the tavern cried, what? All the temple is prepared within. Why nods the drowsy worshipper outside? And as the cock crew, those who stand before the tavern shouted, open then the door. You know how little while we have to stay, and once departed may return no more. Come, fill the cup, and in the fire of spring your winter garment of repentance fling. The bird of time has but a little way to flutter, and the bird is on the wing. Whether at Naashapur or Babylon, whether the cup with sweet or bitter run, the wine of life keeps oozing drop by drop. The leaves of life keep falling one by one. I like him. People think he's written about some drunken state, but he sure hasn't. No. Vritra is the coverer. Vritra, the veil, behind which there is a lamp. And this veil is destroyed by Indra, the shining, and so the darkness is gone. And this allows Surya to rise. And then it is Savitri, who is manifest in this world. See, this individual in a state of immortality. Always life emerging, life emerging, life emerging, always lifting itself to return to the Godhead. In all we do, this is what we're doing, and we don't seem to know this. Allow the life to emerge. Nature supplies us with a body, and that's a very poor way of saying it. The Tibetans say it much better. Having been endowed with a difficult-to-obtain human body, it is senseless to fritter life away. We have difficulty keeping in mind that this body is only a temporary coming together of the elements of nature. It's a little nitrogen, it's a little hydrogen, and it's got some calcium in here somewhere, and it's got a few other minerals, and there's lots of gas and lots of water. That's us, folks. And we're so great, huh? Now, amongst these elements, the Purusha has found a kind of a dwelling place. And in this dwelling place, he is divided. He is the ear consciousness. He is the eye consciousness. He is the mouth consciousness. He is the nose consciousness. He is the touch consciousness. See? In the senses. And he has become so intrigued by all these appearances that he brings about. But at the same time, he yearns to go home. He has this ambivalence, as we all do. In order to return, he must be himself. He must be one. Therefore, in the Old Testament of the Bible, we find, "Come ye out from among them, and be ye therefore separate." That is the separateness of the one from the appearances, so that it becomes the witness thereto, and is not immersed in them. Bring it out, this one. You know, Purusha must extricate himself, is the way they say it. The immortal breath, you know, this life principle which maintains us. There's that. And the will is the power behind the act of breathing. The will is the energy of consciousness. It is present in all forms. In the consciousness, in the subconsciousness, in the superconsciousness, in the vital form, in the physical form, in the mental form. And it comes into its own when it finally emerges into mind. Our actions are very circumscribed because, you know, we live mentally from moment to moment. You know, we cling to these things which attract us, or what we think we can use for our benefit. In the world of appearances, egotistically viewed, our benefit, huh? We think we live in what we're doing. You know, it's the old Zen story of this Roshi who was out working in the garden. And this man comes to interview him and asks him, you know, now that you are enlightened, what do you do? And the Zen master says, I chop wood, I carry water. What did you do before you were enlightened? I chop wood, I carry water. But oh, the difference. Oh, the difference. See? Yeah. We don't live in what we're doing. Not really. We don't have any control over what has been. But sadly, we are controlled by it. We are, to some extent, controlled to our past. The more we observe it and look at it and set it in its place, objectify it, the less we are controlled. See, this past, most of which we have forgotten, but it hasn't forgotten us. I say it over, and it is an old admonition. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you're thinking. We should make the very best choices that we possibly can instead of jumping into things just because I like it. It's going to stay with you. Once you jump into it, it's going to stay with you. We live in an activity of appearances. And we long for the fruit of our activity. We want all this praise that we have done so and so and so and so and so and so. Instead, we should be living in the soul as a soul and viewing the world of the appearances, from the point of being the witness thereto, the observer. We thrash around in our thinkings and willings while this true will remains in the background, not knowing that we don't know that it is in our activities, portions of it that come through. It is never bound by the activity. The divine will is one with all things. What it is, it knows. It knows. What it knows, it does. And then here we are, and the ego steps in and interferes. And it brings about a disturbance, it brings about a division, and our knowledge is very partial and dubious, and yet all the time it is striving to possess not only things, but that knowledge, that knowing. It wants to possess them. We are not in the possession of the being. We are in the possession of the ego. What we are, we know not. What we know, we cannot effect. So this Upanishad, the Isha Upanishad, what it does is invokes the will that we may be conscious of our becoming, so that we may become a power of knowing and be self-possessed, not just laboring with the whims of impulse and what the ego wants. The sign, there is an indication of correct action in us. And it is the surrender of the person to the divine will. Will is not ours. It's not mine. It's not yours. It's not individual even. It is the will of the Purusha, who is in all things and transcends all things. It is called the will of the Lord. And when you do take this step of trying to surrender to this will, you are surrendering to your own future. No longer just bumbling around then. You are surrendering to your own future. You are surrendering to your ultimate potential. Now, life itself, whatever you do, whether you surrender, if you don't surrender, life itself remains the same. You don't change it. And life itself is already perfect. But we could try a little bit to surrender. Observe what we're doing and surrender to something greater. Even though you think maybe it isn't there, you don't see it, or you can't think it. But try it, Surrender. Allow yourself to leave the crookedness. And this way there comes about this acceptance of life. The acceptance of things as they are. O Agni, it says in this Upanishad, lead us by the good path for the enjoyment of the fruit of our action. You know, O God, all our deeds. Destroy our sin of deceit. O will, remember. Remember what was done. O will, remember. And then, of course, that is full, and this is full. This fullness has been projected from that fullness. When this fullness merges in that fullness, all that remains is fullness. Om, peace, peace, peace. And I would like to read to you one other thing from Savitri. But meanwhile, all is a shadow cast by a dream, and to the musing and immobile spirit, life and himself don the aspect of a myth. The burden of a long, unmeaning tale, for the key is hid, and by the inconscient kept. The secret God beneath the threshold dwells. In a body, obscuring the immortal spirit, a nameless resident, vesting unseen powers with matter's shapes and motives beyond thought, and the hazard of an unguessed consequence, an omnipotent, indiscernible influence. He sits, unfelt by the form in which he lives, and veils his knowledge by the groping mind.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.